Hi, and welcome to part two of our Ted Lasso Season 3 podcast. If you're looking to begin the podcast from the beginning, please go find part one because this is not it. But we look forward to having you back here when you do return to listen to part two. All right, thanks so much. Start the podcast.
Hi, you've reached the Signal Watch, movies, television, comics, and more. I'm your host, Ryan Steens. Join me and our cadre of co-contributors as we examine cultural artifacts of the 20th century, boldly explore the 21st, and try to put it all in perspective. Stay tuned. We're gonna try to make this work.
I think it was a little weird watching it kind of wrap up the way it did, given it seems like there were any number of opportunities for other things that would have been maybe more surprising when it felt really telegraphed. And I feel like they could have done something that was going to surprise you, but also understanding Sudeikis is probably at most going to be a producer on whatever the follow-ups are,
Sure.
with maybe the occasional guest appearance on a Christmas thing.
I guess for me, I always thought Ted was going home.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was ultimately like too telegraphed or whatever, because we did the whole like Wizard of Oz thing and we're not in Kansas anymore and there's no place like home, and him playing the pinball machine that's a Wizard of Oz machine is like goodbye Yellow Brick Road references. And like, but I mean, he was always going back to Kansas. So,
Yeah. But I also agree with Mrshl that it whatever like happy resolution he had, I was not entirely certain he was like. I mean, I guess he was okay as he was going to be at the end of the show, but yeah, it didn't feel as complete as I feel like he thought it was, and that felt to me, given I do try not to follow celebrity gossip, but what little I've read about Sudeikis' past 4 or 5 years of his life, at the same time, I was like, I don't know, man.
it's hard to be a divorced dad. That's all I'm going to say about that. Was there anyone else you want to talk about other than Ted?
I mean, we haven't.
Nate?
Nate has his whole storyline. I thought that was the weirdest one. It felt the choppiest to me. Like they were like, oh, you know what's going on with Nate. We don't really need to actually show most of this. Like you don't need to see him actually argue with Rupert. You don't need to see him actually quit. What's important is that he did quit. And you're going to spend an hour wondering what the hell happened. And then we're not going to tell you.
I mean, I understood why he quit after he went to the bar and the girls were there and Rupert was the way he was and he went home to Jade. But I also was like, there were a lot of moments in the show. And you sort of said you didn't mind this before, like not necessarily seeing everything play out, but there are a lot of things left on the table for as much show as we got this season, where I was like, why don't we see Nate? Like, why don't we see the vote to bring Nate back to the team? Like, why don't we? And it's like, okay, we get the beard moment. Maybe that covers that. But like, it's interesting the dramatic moments that somebody decided we're not going to see this. Like,
I would also say we didn't see any, like, look, people are creeps. And sometimes, not everyone, clearly, but Nate, him realizing Rupert was a philanderer, which is maybe the most well-known fact about Rupert that is on this show.
It's not that he was a philanderer. It's that he wanted Nate to be too.
Yeah.
And he was like, and you should come, and the way he treated Jade.
That's right. Because after he saw Jade, he's like, it's the same thing. Oh, your car sucks, so I'm going to buy you a new car. Yeah. Oh, your girlfriend sucks, so I'm going to get you a new, much prettier girlfriend. It's that kind of transactional kind of like everything around you isn't like the people around you aren't really people. They're just means to an end. Right. And it's that view that it reveals the way that he can't. Rupert really isn't a mentor, which is what he badly wants.
And Nate hates this. I mean, Nate's willing to say, like, when he's not with Jade and he gets hooked up with the model, it's awkward and bad and ultimately not a good time. But like, he doesn't quit, and he doesn't love his car. So when he gets a new car, he's like, okay, but he doesn't quit. But like, he loves Jade. So when Rupert does that and is like, oh, it's just going to be a guy's night, and then is just a total asshole, and also is like, oh, here are the girls that we'll be spending the night, tonight with. Like, I think that's the difference there.
Yeah.
I and maybe this is just me, I don't know that I bought it necessarily as a like the line must be drawn here sort of moment.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I also felt like there were other moments where he was like, I'm actually happy Ted was at, like, or I do want to go see. I think that we're getting slowly there, but it was still choppy. So I don't want to belabor this too much. Like, I still agree with you. It was choppy, but I saw some other steps like along the way where,
sure.
He's like, oh, we'll make sure that Ted never comes again. And at first he's like, well, maybe it's okay. And then he writes the text like, okay, yes, please do that.
I don't mean to be a dick about it, but we're also acting like being the head coach of a Premier League team is like not something people sacrifice all sorts of things for, right? I mean, that at the end of the day, this is still has some semblance of reality. I know it's all about like how people relate to each other and but at the same time, there's no. Of course, he lays in bed and he's sad for a day, afterward, or a week or whatever it is afterward, which is viable and I think was good TV, but. I would have liked to have seen more of the decision at that moment rather than just like the look of like, oh, he wants me to be with these girls instead of Jade. Like that there. I mean, I know it's a death by a million cuts. I didn't want to see the slow dissolution of Nate into being a bad person or anything like that, but it just didn't. It didn't feel complete to me, much in the way the Rebecca stuff didn't feel complete to me. And it was kind of just indicative of if I had, narrative bones to pick, it's like, I think you can kind of do that earlier on, but when you're trying to actually stick the landing of the season and make whatever point you're trying to make, they went beyond show, don't tell to let's not even show it.
Right.
Like, we're just going to suggest that big moment happened off screen. And, now we're just dealing with the aftermath of it, which is absolutely a narrative choice the show decided to make multiple times this season. Which, given, again, the fact we're also watching, like, Keeley shop for snow globes and shit, like, a profoundly weird choice in how they use their time.
That's a really good point.
Don't forget the goat shit.
And the goat shit, which was not as funny as they thought it was.
No, sad.
No, I and maybe before we move on, I want to talk about maybe the best ship of the whole season isn't it Jamie and Roy?
Yes.
I mean, isn't them? And they're becoming bros and their interplay. That is the most fun, really, I had all season. Was watching them bring out the best in each other and fight over Keeley and get up at 4 a.m. and go running and dude, like just their adventures are so. That's the heart for me of what I enjoyed about this season.
I loved it. I loved all their training sessions and in the Amsterdam episode when they have the whole Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid riding bikes moment and
oh my god, I'd never picked up on that.
Yes, that's what it is. And when he says he can't ride his bike, apparently they do this big laugh that you might be like, where? I mean, that's okay, but like, why are they doing that? It's the laugh that Butch gives Sundance when Sundance says, I can't swim. And then they play the song. Anyway, they ride the bikes in Amsterdam and they go look at windmills and
yeah.
I love them.
Oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Everybody watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's great.
I saw it.
I haven't seen it since college.
It was on TV all the time when I was a kid. So
I do want to say currently at Archive of Our Own, there are 674 works in Roy Kent / Jamie Tart. So
woohoo! Good for them. I hope they're very happy.
Yeah. Well done, America, or whole world, I guess.
Hey, you know what I also appreciated is it was a goofy moment, but I laughed that when you go into Jamie Tart's bedroom and it's Keely Jones on the wall and Roy Kent on the wall.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad. It's very weird. It's a lot of layers, but
I mean, and Jamie's arc similarly this season was it was interesting to see Jamie trying to be a good dude, and he was, right? I mean, it to the point of it messing him up, but also to actually like show his mom and kind of that whole relationship. I mean, it was better than just a punchline. I thought it was well thought out. And
that was one of the sweetest moments of the season, was him showing him with his mom.
And as much as the show is about fatherhood, I didn't mind the stuff with him and his dad at the end. And actually, I mean, much is made of Nate's change, but I think he probably changes he has a pretty big growth over the course. He's always him. He's always Jamie Tart, but lots of growth there in the last season.
Yeah. What do y'all think about the insertion of Zava and his part in the season? And I keep thinking this is Messy is about to enter the MSL or MLS rather.
Yeah, I get why they did it. It was probably another thing that we didn't need.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. You know, there was some welcome, I guess not welcome. They did make some efforts to sort of say, what would happen if this were a real team? You know, that they might try to make a big splash in a big signing, you know, and maybe in sort of mocking just as the Simpsons did, you know, bringing in Poochie, right?
Right.
They're sort of mocking that idea, but at the same time, it suffers from that idea in that we totally didn't need this. It didn't really help. It didn't move the needle, I felt like, on the team or Jamie's arc really. It had some comedy. That was one of the spots of he was a good source of comedy, but and I liked the character himself. I thought he was very funny. I thought it was very well done. But yeah, I'm with Laura. I think Laura said it. We didn't need that.
I liked Rebecca getting him on the team. I mean, there were some strong moments in there for sure. Yeah. But I said.
It felt entirely to me like reverse engineered from we need them to start low, then be high, but then we also need them low again.
Right.
And then having him like just flake out and say I've retired, which I mean, I guess you can do that. But I was like, you could have done that with an ankle injury or something. Like, you know, he blows an ACL or blows a knee and he's out forever or out for the season. And they still had it felt like unnecessary drama in some ways. And I think probably would have, I don't know, maybe if they thought if they did an injury that, he'll come back triumphantly for the finale or something. I have no idea what the thinking was on how and why they removed him at that.
Was there a real guy it's based on who went off to do an avocado farm? I think there maybe was.
I have no idea. I don't follow enough.
I think they were making a joke about
Like a
I mean, I
Beckham,
think there's a lot
Beckham, a Beckham joke or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you have star players in all sports like this that sort of get added to a team and then it ends up being a disaster. But like, I think they might be referencing a specific person. Also, like, can't do an ankle injury because then when Jamie gets hurt with the ankle, like that's less. I mean,
Yeah.
But it all was a little bit sort of. It didn't really go anywhere, right? I mean, it sort of set Jamie off on I'm going to start training with Roy, but like, yeah, ultimately I was unimpressed. It didn't go anywhere. But I guess some laughs. We had some lulls.
Yeah, there was an American football player, Jason Brown, who left to go be a farmer. So maybe that was the reference. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So Laurie, you both had indicated you wanted to talk about what you did like in the finale and maybe some things that connected it to the pilot.
Right. Well, there's a lot of callbacks in the finale, like we have the Ussy guy come back. Phoebe's boob drawing goes up with tape over it. The Ted's Running Man again. We get to see, this isn't the pilot, but we get to see I did love the SB Oscar moment. Do you know what I speak of? The play where Jamie, give me the ball. I want the ball. Give me the ball.
Yes.
And Ted finally knows what offsides is. What you talking about, Willis? We finally figure out Beard's name. I think those are a lot. I mean, again, the moment they arrive in London in the pilot, they do we're not in Kansas anymore joke. So, I mean, I think the whole thing has been sort of, I know I keep bringing up Wizard of Oz, even though I find it sort of annoying when people keep talking about Wizard of Oz. But, I feel like it's that thing where they're all going back home again. Just moments I loved in the finale, though. I loved the little, like the Geronimo picture, the May Cheers callback. Because George Wendt is his uncle, is Jason Sudeikis' uncle, right?
Yeah, I will be honest, and I thought that was really strange. Like, I mean, I was like, oh, but you guys haven't really necessarily treated this like it took me out of the scene for a minute to go, wait, why the Cheers call back?
Right.
In the final episode in the last minutes.
It does. I mean, there was that whole, I think it was season 2 where you realize why Ted is called Ted. I mean, there was that like that was an element that I remember. And then there is some of that Cheers. That's one part of the will they or won't they that the Rebecca and Ted shippers might be thinking that because of that of the Ted of the.
Well, and the fact that there was Sam and Rebecca was like a thing. It was sort of like a
Sam. That's what I meant, not Ted. Yeah. I don't know why I said Ted. Sam.
Why Sam's called Sam.
Sam. Yeah. Well,
I was wondering what did I miss? Why was Ted called Sam?
I was just going to let that go right by.
No, sorry, Sam. I'm not good with names. This is why I'm a pro, right? Diamond dogs, like Roy asking to become a diamond dog, is such a big and awesome.
That is such a good scene, and it might be one of my favorite scenes in the entire series. Where, and it sort of also for me encapsulated like kind of some things they were trying to do with the season. Like, I tried to change, I tried to do something different, but it just sucks. Like, nothing. Why can't I do this? But it was such a lovely scene about things not being perfect, and I loved all of it. I loved all of that Diamond Dog scene so much.
I love the whole Diamond Dogs thing in general is like just one of my favorite parts of the show, because it is one of those things where it's like just dudes being friends is like a thing that we probably don't see often enough on TV, and how they're friends, I think, is really important. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked it when they do. Woo, 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 woo. Love it.
it was an interesting bit in that, I mean, one, you don't have many shows these days with just guys having any particular reason to be in the same room with each other, and that's all that they show, unless it's like SEAL, whatever Navy SEAL show or whatever. And it felt very, and I mean this in the best way possible, it felt very dorm roomy to me, of like, that's kind of the last time I've been in a space with other dudes where we're like, hey, I got to sort this out, so I need to bounce this off some dudes. Of okay, this is clearly a trusted circle, and you have to understand what your role is in this circle. But yeah, I also liked it, and liked almost as much the attempt to establish the Love Hounds. So.
Yes. It went so poorly.
This does not always work. This is a magical thing. When it does happen, do not take it for granted.
Love Hounds. Oh, poor Nate.
Poor Nate tries so hard. Oh, we could just all talk about our love lives. My parents are good. Yeah, that was good. That was a good moment.
That is one of the things that they say in sports all the time, right? Is how hard it is to create a culture, like and so I thought that was one of the interesting things about Ted Lasso, that if you have it's an office comedy, right? But it's a different kind of office comedy than maybe we're used to seeing. And I thought it was interesting. Instead of the dudes like sort of we've been watching a lot of The Office because my 13-year-old son is just adores it. There's an earnestness to this that you don't often see on television,
right.
Where they're not saying, okay, but you're the idiot. You have a bunch of idiots so that you can have somebody be the smart one. And you really have everybody really trying to help. Like the people who aren't utterly emotionally clueless, like Jack or Rupert, really are trying to get somewhere with themselves. And I think that the giving room for everybody to grow was kind of a neat thing that maybe you don't see enough.
I appreciate the male friendship, like the room to have positive male friendship.
Yeah.
It's great to see that. Y'all should set up a Diamond Dogs.
Oh, we have a completely different Slack we've never told you about, Laura.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, it could sort of be that, but I feel like I'm Rebecca, but I'm like,
I'm creating that channel as we speak.
Okay, fantastic. Don't let me in. Fantastic. Let's talk about the very end, because I love this. Right. I so love how you're like, no, there's just one way to interpret things. But I'm here to tell you that is a dream sequence. But I know I'm wrong. I know that the writers of the show are like, no, it's not. But Ted is asleep on the plane. And that Stonehenge is very gauzy. And I'm also like, Ted would be there. But then they've explained this, and they're like, no, it was some reason that Ted couldn't be there. It's all real. It all really happened. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. And I understand that you literally wrote this. And some of it might come to fruition, but that's a dream sequence.
That would make it so cool, though. I mean, really. If it was a dream sequence,
the
whole dream sequence, Wizard of Oz thing, that would be an interesting place to take the show.
Would you like to literally show up on a yellow brick road?
God, that would be amazing. So I need some flying monkeys, though. If we're gonna go.
You need some flying monkeys. That's Rupert now.
Well, I mean,
Rupert's with the flying monkeys.
I will say, Laura, I thought it was the framing of it felt to me like the ending of Raising Arizona, where he's like, I thought way out into the future, and he's kind of prognosticating about how everything was going to work out. And it definitely had that vibe. I mean, it seemed very odd that a Premier League coach is now coaching apparently his 10-year-old son's soccer team.
Yes. One thing I do love is Henry wears number 9. That's JB's number.
Still a Jamie Tart fan.
Still a Jimmy Tart fan. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing too. It's like, are we meant to believe that his job now is coaching his kids' soccer? Because like my husband has coached my kids' soccer, but he has a job. Like he also like that's not Ted Lasso's job, right?
No, I don't think it was his job. But I also thought like at some point the other dads are going to be like, "Hey, man, be cool."
Right. But he's also a very chill kids coach with the Be a Goldfish.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the next Ted Lasso show when he becomes an NBA coach. You know, I just want him to keep going to different sports, I think is what it is.
I did enjoy the callback where Higgins comes in and says, I've rounded up the usual names, and I threw in a basketball coach from New Zealand just to spice things. Although it's very good that it didn't end up being him and it was Roy.
So, you know, we see Beard getting married to Jane, you know, and that was one of the things that day after, as I was seeing bad takes go by, was the horror that Beard would have married this toxic woman, and you know all the
who's abusive and
yeah. And
that seems like it. I'm happy for them. That works for them.
It's like we all know. You've all known the two people who are those people, and sometimes they go off and go be crazy and make it work together. Like it's not everything's a rubric, man. Like you free your mind, but yeah, but I am curious as to what do you think that the Apple TV network, who has enjoyed amazing success, somehow this convinced them to buy apparently Major League Soccer in the US, and has a bunch of actors who are all gig workers looking for their next thing. I mean, what do you prognosticate is going to be the outcome, or do you think that this is actually it? Do you think they're going to put a bow on it?
I do have some questions. Where did they shoot? They shoot this in the UK, correct?
Yeah, they do.
My understanding is British contracts for actors work differently from American contracts for actors.
Oh shit! You were going to throw down some insider knowledge here. Okay, I'm excited. Ooh.
Just a little, though. Just a tiny little.
All right.
No, but that's why you have things like Doctor Who. Like Doctor Who changes. Who plays Doctor Who? Doctor Who forms himself into a new body like every 3 years or so, and there's a new Doctor Who. And in the US, you usually sign a 6-year contract with built-in negotiations to go up a certain amount each year. And there's some exceptions if a show is extremely popular, or if a show is on a long time. That's usually when you start hearing, once they hit their 6th year, if it's extremely popular, it's when you start hearing about those big number renegotiations. So I'm curious, like, who they can still have to some degree, who'll come back. I mean, everyone likes to make money, but some people might like to go make movies or something. So that said, I could see a Richmond Way spinoff. It seems like maybe they're trying to set Keeley up for a spinoff.
Yeah.
I'm also very happy for it to be done because I like it when things are contained and finished and lovely. But I will say, in the past, I have been wrong. Like, I thought the American Office was a terrible idea after the British Office, and I was wrong. It's good. It did well.
It did do well.
So sometimes,
do you remember the Hogan family?
Yeah, and then Valerie's family.
Yeah, right. Isn't that kind of what's happening here? We're Hogan family. This show. It's gonna. There's no more. Oh no, it's not.
No more Duncan. It's
not Ted Lasso anymore. It's the Richmond Way.
It's the Richmond Way. It was never about me. It was always about.
That's right.
It never was. Look, I think the door's open. I guess I won't be surprised either way. How's that? Do you have any brilliant ideas? I did want to see Sam's restaurant, but yeah. I don't think I'm going to get Sam's restaurant.
They have some ways. That's what I was wondering. I mean, we're transitioning, but this did feel like a transition. And but where to, right? There's all these settings. Like you could see the Keeley thing. Maybe they're like, it's almost like they're piloting these ideas into the show. Oh, this is going to be Sam's restaurant, or this is going to be Keeley's PR firm, or this is going to be, okay, and maybe it's going to be all three of those. I don't know.
Well, like to your point, it's like maybe they were testing it. Like
that's what I would not shock me. But at the same time, I'm like, you love hanging out with these people, but what are they going to do? Like I'm skeptical a little bit that they can make a show when it does feel like it's kind of gone where it needed to go. Plus some, really.
I will say this. I did not think, and I didn't talk about it in any of the prior 90 minutes of podcasting, but I don't think they did an amazing job with. I liked Roy's speech at the end of "I've tried all year to be better," but I also think Roy just felt like he was just floating all season.
He made some really powerful mistakes.
Yeah,
in a good way.
He also would just be in an episode and then just say some like completely bizarre shit that seemed out of character about like wanting to chase people around with hammers or whatever, and I was just like, what was that? And I know he was working on his other show for Apple, while he was working on this and
Shrinking, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, Shrinking, I give it the seal of approval.
I've seen about half of it, and just because my family is watching it, my son and my wife.
Wow, your kids are watching that?
Yeah, Ryan, I'm not exercising any parental guidance around here.
No, hats off, man. Hats off. They're gonna learn.
I haven't gotten to it yet, but I've heard good things. So,
but anyway, my point being, I wondered if they were leaving the door open for Roy, so he wasn't all fixed by the time they got to Roy and the Greyhounds or whatever they were going to make the next show be, so he could still be himself, still be the Roy and still working on himself, and not have all of his problems solved and have found love and all the. I mean, from a very cynical standpoint, I had that thought. I do agree everything's still true and valid that you said about him working on himself and needing to continue to do so, but I also was like, if we're never going to see this guy again, I would have expected a little bit more of a button on this very important major character on this show. Then, whoops, nothing happened for me this year. Sorry, y'all.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I agree.
Nothing happened with Roy Kent this year. I mean, his and Jamie's are like they had a lot of screen time.
I was going to say some of my favorite moments were Roy moments, and
I thought so too.
And then it's that moment too where he's like, "Who did you make the tape for?" And immediately being like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry." And like he absolutely should not have ended up with Keeley at the end. It's a little open ended, but I'm like, maybe thank God, because everything else is so like Nate's fixed, Ted's smiling. I don't know. Maybe we just need something to end up sort of unresolved. I didn't have the same cynical take.
I would argue with you guys and say Roy had pretty much been at that point all last season. Like he just happened to have Keeley around to have like more to do. Roy was already a very like aware. Like,
but he had the whole thing with Trent too, where he hated Trent and like nobody would talk to Trent, and then he showed that growth moment with Trent where he's like, let me show you what you wrote about me when I was a kid. Yeah. And Trent apologized. And
I mean,
is the press conference. I mean, like, I just think there's a lot to the Roy this season. I mean, he didn't have enough time, but I thought Roy had a lot of moments. I did.
I'm not saying he didn't have moments. Everybody had moments. That was part of the problem all season. But he didn't. They didn't really put a button on anything with him for something that was being sealed up. If you were to say this is now going to be a ship in a bottle, I don't feel like his character's arc.
But he's the coach now. I feel like I'm in such a happy place with him after his Diamond Dog speech, where he's like,
so you can enjoy him. Enjoy him then as the coach in the spinoff show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I need that, but we'll see.
He continues to work on himself. Yeah, I mean, it's Joey going off to LA to go be an actor. It's going to be great.
I didn't watch that show.
It was horrible. It's a nightmare.
I think I'm more bullish on Roy than you are. It sounds like. I thought he he was actually one of the bright spots of the show this year. And for me, the same problem, but I agree with you. Same problem that we have really show wide is that it's spread too thin, and you don't get enough of the core cast, which is why you came to Ted Lasso in the first place. Aside from Tart, you actually get a lot of Tart this season. Yeah, you do get plenty of Jamie, but the short shrift for a lot of other characters that are beloved.
Yeah. And I loved it every time he said whistle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whistle.
What role do you think Roy played in the Sound of Music number? How much
I think he choreographed
how much coaching do you think Roy did there?
Okay, I think he choreographed the entire thing, but also I did not need any of that. Like, that should have worked so much better than it did. And unfortunately, it just didn't land for me. Like, it's another thing that on paper, I'm like, yes, that's perfect for all of this. And then you watch it and I'm like, okay, can this be over now?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, at least this is going to be short, because I know how many verses there are.
Oh my God. It was cringe, as the kids say.
Yeah. So part of why I think they're also going to keep doing this is the merchandise for this really didn't start hitting until this season, and really towards the end of the season. Like, WB Shop was still loading in new stuff. Funko's finally releasing actual Funko Pops of the cast like later this summer.
Finally.
Well, I mean, Funko usually is like, oh, you had half of a thought about one thing, we want to license it. Like,
right.
Like, it takes them all.
They're on top of it.
Yeah.
Is there a Lego set? Somebody knows out there.
I don't.
If you've made it past the 2-hour mark,
that's great. That's great. Is there a Lego set? I'm googling this as we speak.
Because he plays with the Lego set. There's a little Lego Nate. It's important to the plot, or at least emotional.
Oh, that is a good
tone.
Point. That is a good point.
So I mean, and then they never really stopped on their press tour once this season started, and it was very Sudeikis light. It was like, here's everybody. We're going to hit the US. We're going to go back to the UK. Now everyone's back in the US, like right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've been kind of press touring this show since before it started airing, and they're still doing it. And it's been off the air for 3 weeks, or been wrapped up 3 weeks ago. That's weird. I mean, the fucking Avengers don't do that. And it's, anyway, there's just these weird things that I'm like. Also, I know Sudeikis, in trying to make sure everybody has a happy career afterward. I can see him also going, what about Higgins? You like this guy, right?
Right.
Give him work.
Higgins being a jazz ace was like kind of unexpected and weird.
I loved it though. That was one of the side things that I was like, I'm grateful that I got that. It made me laugh that he kept wanting to go to the red light district, and everybody feeling very uncomfortable about that.
Yeah.
What it turned into, the whole journey, I was there for that.
Higgins was low key. I like him. I thought he was one of the MVPs of the show. I really liked Higgins. I mean, we didn't get a lot of it this season, but his relationship with Rebecca, coming back from him being the bag man for Rupert to really, becoming an engine of the success for the show and the cast, and just being part of that ensemble, like really, that's a low key, one of the more successful aspects of the show is Higgins.
I agree. And I think that's a little bit what they're trying to do with Keeley's CFO, and it wasn't the same.
It was not the same.
But I do love Higgins, and I'm just trying to not sound like a huge misogynist as I'm like, but I love the male version. Version totally works. But on this show, it does. Sorry. And I do like the female characters. Again, I like Rebecca. I like Keely when she hangs out with other people on the show. Just that whole storyline didn't work for me. You know what I was going to say for spinoffs, and I've said this before, I'd be very happy to have a holiday special, like maybe a regular holiday special, maybe even a movie. We'll see what happens though. Yeah. But if anyone at Apple is listening, I'm putting in my vote for the holiday special.
Would you watch a show about just Jade being a host at Athens? No,
I did not. I was not fully on board with Jade. I wanted to be another thing that sometimes worked, but sometimes did not. You know what I did really enjoy though was Nate and his dad.
Yeah. I thought that was handled very well in the end.
It's been said that this is a show about fatherhood. It's also a show about therapy. And, we do see Roy go to therapy at the very end. Mm-hmm. So I feel complete because I know he's in good hands with Dr. Sheeran.
Yes.
And she's back. She's back at Richmond.
She's going to be part of the cast on Roy and the Greyhounds.
Yep. Coming to Apple in 2024.
So the only thing we know for sure is this Christmas, Hannah Waddingham will have a Christmas special on Apple Plus.
And also there's currently a WGA strike, so nobody is writing anything right now.
Yes. And they have all said they're fully committed to the strike, yada, yada. So I would not expect to hear much more coming out for a little while. If anything indeed does. I will be curious to see if this were to wrap up now, what the long-term legacy would be given, so many shows that have problems with the finale. This is clearly not the same thing as Lost, but a lot of people didn't recover from Lost, and it's kind of hammy ending. And I will be in people who were really invested in things about the show, like Roy and Keely or whatever, certainly Ted Becca. What will come out of this over the next few years, or if it will just be remembered by critics next time something remotely close to this appears. I really don't know. I have not a clue what to think about what people will be saying about this show in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out. They lived in an alternate universe where there wasn't any COVID, and they also did a lot of new stuff that I feel like we may not understand until we are in the fullness of time.
I mean,
the fullness of time.
You're not wrong.
But yeah, I think there are some really great things in the show that maybe we'll look back and see were groundbreaking, and then other things that, maybe it's like watching The Office now, and there's some moments where you're like, well, we wouldn't do that on television now. But
yeah,
but it's a show still people return to. We watch The Office is often on in the background at our house as well. So
I do think Ted Lasso is first of all, I think the ending, the ending, like the last episode, really, I think for a lot of people, at least based on my reading, a lot of the reviews, it seemed to salvage it because I think that I do think it, like as we like to say, it did stick the landing, even though it was very wobbly. So I think that's a good thing for the show long term. And I just think this is a show that people love to hang out with. This is like, that first season is nearly flawless. I mean, I just think that's about as good a season as a TV as you can make. And I think the second season is really good. It's going to have a long shelf life as something people put on in the background. This is I know for a fact that my wife has done that a number of times. Just put on a season of that because you can finish it in an afternoon. We can finish the season in an afternoon, and it just has those beats. Especially again, stronger in the first and second season, but that's going to have a long shelf life. I feel like for people, and the characters, I think, are what's going to live on. I think people will sort of just have warm feelings about that cast.
I 100% agree. Even if they never did anything else again, people will be checking out like what stuff that these people are in. I guess Danny is in the new Transformers movie. So although I've not seen him in a
Danny, oh my god.
Isn't Danny so delightful?
He's great.
I also did enjoy the Danny and Zorro side story this season.
Yes.
That was that
The journey.
Even though I have quibbles, that is not one.
Yeah, that was the finale of Zorro changing his name to Zorro was quite nice.
I liked Van Damme. Okay,
Yeah.
It's fine.
But yeah, it I don't know. I mean, I'll be curious to see kind of what people are saying if people who are younger than us have a very, very different take on all of it, and we find out that this was something that they considered to be for the olds or whatever. But as you said,
with that.
fullness of time.
That's right.
All right. Well, guys, I have made you talk for nigh like an hour 45 on this. That's probably plenty of time to discuss Ted Lasso. Any final thoughts on 3 seasons of the TV show?
Barbecue sauce.
Works for me.
I think that says it all.
All right, gang. Thanks so much for listening. If you have made it this far, please tell us what you thought of the third season, I guess, of Ted Lasso. You can find me on the Twitters at Melbotis, MELBOTIS, or just look for signal-watch.com for all of your Signal Watch needs. Laura, do you want people to find you or not?
At this point, I think you have to send me a note by carrier pigeon. That would have been funnier if I'd stuck the landing. I did. But Mrshl, how can we find you?
MRSHL at thetwitter.com until I get a Blue Sky invite, I guess, So I'm out there, still twittering. I have to say, now that they have stats for how often your tweets are seen, it's actually made Twitter more depressing for me, not less. I'm like, I'm just tweeting into the void. Nobody's reading these things.
Same. And I also noticed yesterday, if you're clicking on I want to see photos about whatever I'm searching for, no longer works. So things are going great over at the Twitter, and I am as well waiting for my Blue Ski invitation.
Blue Ski. Very nice.
Anyway, you guys, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to actually we're seeing each other because we're on Zoom. But we will have to actually see each other in person. I will do something where we're not having to record, and we'll come hang out. All right, everyone have a good one, and I know what we're doing next. It's going to be very different from this, and so I hope you like killer whale movies. So
that's real life right now.
That's why we're doing it, my man. All right, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Look at me, I am old, but I'm happy. All the times that I've cried, keeping all the things I knew inside. It's hard, but it's harder to ignore it. If they were right, I'd agree, but it's them they know, not me. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go.
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotis. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.